equipped for romance. Who should you be? What should you look for? And how do you do it? So maybe that'll meet some of the needs that you all put in there. Just hit my record button. So feel free. What do you think about? Some of you did that. Here's the slide that's over there as well. I want to start with a couple things about singlehood itself and intimacy. We're at a singles conference. You have come to that. How does the idea of intimacy apply now? We tend to think when people say, I'm literally teaching a marriage retreat next month. They've changed the title. The title of my retreats tend to be the art of marital intimacy, or the art of intimate marriage is and they said, we want to take the word intimacy out of the title because people are really reactive to it. This is married people who don't want the word intimacy in the title because they don't want to come if that word's in there. Why do you think that is?
Fear. Exposure.
Fear, and it's not happening. So you think you're going to get married and you're going to have it. I'm going to tell you some truths today. So I teach marriage retreats, and I do surveys of our marrieds in our fellowship. 60%, it's not going well. Not 10, not 20. So I'm just telling you honestly, if you think I'm going to get married, it's going to fix everything, it doesn't work that way. That's why Paul said, when you get married, you're going to have a lot of troubles. Yeah. So how do we equip ourselves well to maybe not be in that 60%? Okay? Wow. Because the reality is we haven't talked honestly. The church in Brazil, I don't know where Vera is today, but Vera is here. She's an amazing therapist. And the church in Brazil asked her to put together a class for those studying the Bible to become Christians on the realities of marriage so that they would learn that beforehand, right? And not get this idea, hood over your head, this is what it's going to be like. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, so there's this belief too. This is a big one in our fellowship, the belief that the ultimate life is the married life. Now, some of you are in here because you want to be married, but I just want to pop a bubble. But that's what I already did. But the reality is, this idea that the married life is the ultimate life, okay, our singles conferences, this one is doing such a good job at the majority of teachers being single who are speaking. People have said the churches should be led by singles. Name one. Name one. But look at the scriptures. I don't know if Timothy was married, but they never mention it. Paul definitely wasn't. There were some that were, and it was kind of a drag because they had to bring their wives along with them. The reality is we've done a major disservice in our singles ministries. The people in charge are always married, and that's not right, okay? I say that from multiple levels. It's not biblical, and there's a lot of grief and loss. Some of you are getting older and wondering, will I ever have a kid? And it's been the dream for your whole life. And so you know how they were neglecting the widows, right? And we have neglected this huge piece. For some of you, it is so incredibly painful. I don't know how to talk about it, but we need to talk about it, right? The loss is huge. And we need to tell the truth that what Paul points out, those who marry will face many troubles. So in all honesty, I want to talk a little bit about those so that you can prepare yourself for them, whether you end up married or not. Right. You might have that fairy tale, but the likelihood is you won't. So how do you deal with the very real things? Whether it's a married relationship or dating relationships or just with your favorite best friend and the problems that go on. So the other big piece that comes into the work I do a bit and that we can all relate to is the word loneliness. Yes. The loneliness is huge. The lack of touch is huge. The very first time, honestly, that really came to my awareness, I was asked to come teach in Singapore and all on sexuality, and then the older single women wanted a class just for themselves. And they wanted it because this doesn't apply to us, so what do? The thing that came up over and over is, I don't get any hugs. I used to wake up next to somebody when I was partnered before, and I don't wake up next to anybody anymore. It's really painful. So that obviously people that have previously been in relationships, whether widowed or divorced or just had been in relationships most of their lives, and they're now disciples and they're not having sex with somebody, they're not waking up next to that body, right? And that can be it, or just not going to an event and everybody there is partnered and you're not, right? There's just so many things about singlehood that can be painful, and people give trite answers like God is your husband, God is your wife. Like, okay, I think that's got some reality to it, but that's not just reality for a single person. That's reality for a married person and everybody else. He has to be our number one, but the trite answers are so dismissive and they're painful. And you may have gone through some really serious, maybe you're in an upswing. I'm excited about this class. For those of you with the word excited in your answer, but maybe you're in a season of feeling really dark and hopeless. And it's painful to be here. And you might feel, often what will happen is there's almost a desperation that occurs. I got to find some way. And then there's compromises that we can all make, right, because of that. And so we might sell out for something, honestly, that ends up being incredibly painful. And those are the couples that end up in my office, honestly, because they didn't hold out for what God might really want. Like, you know how Sarah, she's like forcing herself to have a baby? Yeah. People do that with relationships. I'm going to force myself to have a relationship. I'm going to make one. What Paul says is kick against the goads. I'm going to make it happen. And then it just ends up painful. I'm not saying every relationship, but I'm just saying when we compromise, it can lead to so much. And there's just a lack of intimacy overall in relationships. Right? So I'm going to talk about intimacy skills today. Amen. All right. There we go. Right at the top. We don't equip people before they're married, when they do get married, with good intimacy skills. We don't. We need to learn them now. Honestly, people often don't know how to identify, express, and manage emotion. You might have grown up in a family where saying you were angry or hurt was never allowed. You were never allowed to cry or be mad or whatever. Or emotion was completely out of control and people were violent. Like you never learned how to manage emotion. And so you're going to go be close to somebody for the next how many decades? And you didn't get to learn those skills. Those skills are important to learn now. How to identify emotion, how to express it, and how to manage it. Okay, that's the bulk of my work right there in that one little bullet. What about conflict resolution skills? I'm going to show you one at the end here. Please God that we have enough time. How do you fight? What do you do when someone hurts you so bad you feel like your gut is going to split open? David said, it'd be one thing if it was a stranger that harmed me, that insulted me. But it's you, my friend, my close companion, with whom I walked in sweet fellowship. Psalm 55. The greatest pains come from those who you're close to. And you might have already experienced it maybe multiple times. And you might be like, I'm not doing that again. It's super painful, right? So how do you respond to when you feel hurt? You might have troubles with that now in relationships. You probably want to grow in that now, right? Whether you end up partnered or not. Do you have a trauma background? People ask me all the time, should I deal with that now? And I'm not just talking sexual trauma, any kind of trauma. I know it might come up if I end up in a marital relationship. Deal with it now. Don't wait, for it to get triggered over and over and over again. Do you have issues with body image? Do that work now. Somebody just shared with me that they just read, or they had bought, or talked about getting Earthen Vessels, a great book on the body. I have a book I'm writing on body image. It's not going to be done for probably another year or so, but it's such a huge need. If you have negative issues about your body, get the help now, right? Within our fellowship, if you're going to get married, do you guys understand, when do they talk about sexuality typically?
2 weeks before.
The week before. Yes, isn't that terrible? Look shocked. You should look shocked.
I am shocked.
They're doing premarital counseling with a married couple, and they talk about sexuality the week before. So whenever I have the chance, I have it right now because I have a microphone in my hand. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
If you have a sexual abuse background, if you have a sexual addiction background, if you deal with pornography, do not wait till the week before your wedding to tell your partner. Get help with when. But I'd say before you say, I want to marry you, that's before the engagement. Somewhere in the dating process, count the cost. Be honest. Don't be having that. I don't know what you need as far as what level of detail to go into. Get lots of input, but let's not do it the week before, right? And really, how do you do this skill of deeply knowing people? And how do you do it when you're not supposed to go be alone with somebody? Okay, we have all the funny rules around dating, right? But how, you might be like, I'm not doing those anymore. The reality is, how do we be wise but still get to deeply know a person, right? And then honestly, the single biggest thing I hope you receive from today is some direction on how to really make sure you're having a strong relationship with God, because you cannot know where your marriage is going to go or where your kids are going to go. One of the biggest things that happens in the marrieds ministry is their marriages don't turn out, like I said, the way they're wanting it to, and their kids don't follow Jesus. And they had this picture that they were told when they were getting married, that this is how it's going to look, and it doesn't turn out that way. Those individuals need to be strong with God. Whether you're married or single. I'm hoping I'm not painting it all as black, because the reality is Paul already told us you're going to have a lot of troubles. You better be close to Jesus, no matter which direction you end up going, right? So, okay, let me just tell you some things to pay attention to that comes up a lot for couples that I work with.
So good.
Do the person that you're with, and that you're wondering whether to be with them, do they engage in controlling behaviors? Now, that's a really big word. It's kind of nasty out there. The whole, is she a narcissist? I hate that word. It's like one of the number one search terms on Google, narcissist. So in other words, so what? Okay, the reality is, though, I do see a bit of that come up. Are they emotionally open and not just with you? Are you the first person they've spilled their heart to? Is the person you're thinking of dating the first person you've spilled your heart to? You need to build those skills of emotion, right? Identification, emotion, expression with many people, not just with this person you now have your heart beating for frantically, right? How are their deep relationships with others, right? Have you paid attention to cultural differences? I had this one couple, they were both Chinese. One was born in China, one was born in the United States. And you know what everybody does? Well, they're both Chinese. They wouldn't have cultural... Oh my goodness. Seriously? So pay attention to cultural differences ahead of time, right? Is there openness in their life about these really tricky areas? Do they get input from others? Are they... the biggest word you should find out, is this a teachable person?
Yes.
The person you're thinking about being with, are they humble? Are they teachable? Do they get input into their lives? If they don't, go no farther. Okay, that's one of the big ones.
Yes.
If you don't see somebody teachable, and if you're not teachable, if you don't take input and don't seek input into your life, go read all the scriptures on it. I'm not going to do the whole mantra of, the whole discipleship thing. I am. But in the language of we need to be humble. Be humble. If you have kids and they have kids, go read Ron Deal's book on blended families, smart step families. Ron Deal, D-E-A-L. Blended families take about 7 years. People are like, oh, now she calls him mommy and she calls him daddy and we're all happy. Maybe when they're 10, but then try 12 and 13 and 14. It's hard work. And actually, I have couples that get married with adult kids, no kids at home, and it's the biggest area of conflict between them. So go read helpful stuff like that. What is this person you're looking at? What are their personal convictions? Are they honest? Okay, this is the big one with my kids. Like, when you go into the movie theater, do you go to a second movie you didn't pay for? I'm asking you. So my kids were always ticked that I would never do that. So finally, they're like in their late teens. I'm like, okay, we could do this one day. And I'm like, I can't do that again. I will never do that again. Like, okay, I know that's like a really, really small thing, but truly, honesty, right? What about, how are their quiet times? That is the single biggest thing you should find out about. What's their spirituality? I'm going to hit on that some more. Are they a servant? Do they initiate and give to people? How are they managers? Obviously, you need to ask yourself all of these pieces. This is huge unequipped stuff. But this is also what you want to look for, right? We need to deal with the myths, okay? I mean, this is what it looks like. You know, obviously I teach a lot on sexuality, so the myths on sexuality are huge. But that there's a big myth about the whole idea, if you're not physically attracted, you can't have a good marital, it'll mess up all your sexuality. That might be true for a small percentage of people that it's just their weakness. They just can't go past that. People change in their looks, they get older, their skin sags, they gain weight. Or you might be Guy Hammond, who's same-sex attracted, and you're never going to be sexually attracted to your partner. Guy and Kathy, and now Guy and Laura, amazing relationships. Attraction, this is Guy's actual words to that, is attraction is not all it's cracked up to be. It's not the basis of a solid relationship. Is it important? The problem is then we go the whole other extreme. We were just, spiritual partners making disciples. And so it didn't matter whether I was drawn to them or not. I really hope you like them a lot. Don't get married if you don't. Whatever. But I just want to put a poke in that bubble about the idea of attraction is the number one thing, right? Or it's very, very important. We have gone both directions in severity. Like, it's not important at all, just marry because they're spiritual. Okay, so they're both problematic. The whole idea of soulmate, or, the one person I've ever created for, go read some stuff. I'm just tapping it right now. It's really kind of messed things up. People who, well, I could go into that some more, I won't. And of course, that whole idea of this is what the perfect Christian family looks like, and yours isn't going to turn out that way. And so counting that cost ahead of time. I do not have enough time, but go watch this Axe commercial. It is so funny. Okay. So I just want to share with you some of the things the research says. On dating websites, this is what they did. They tracked people's eye movements as they're on the dating website. What are they looking at? They literally did research checking where the eyes go. Resource information had little effect on men's overall attention. In other words, did she have a good job, and was she well educated? That didn't quite keep their attention. Women's overall attention to men's faces varied depending on their level of income and occupation. So how long their glance stayed on his face was somewhat affected by, will he be a good provider, right? Women evaluated men's faces more when income and occupation were low. Okay, is he good looking enough? I'm sorry, but that's basically what that says. Okay. This might not be you, but it was a research study. Somebody did it. It was on a dating website, which I hope we're not all using. If you do, whatever. Unexpectedly, this is so funny. Men marginally increased their attention towards unattractive women when they had a high level of income and esteemed occupation. Okay, I'll pay a little bit more attention. Men self-reported, this was separate from the eye movement, high interest in women for short-term relationships, and women self-reported a higher interest in men for long-term relationships. Okay, this isn't everybody. All stats are only one slice, but it's just kind of interesting. I do have to say this is the funniest one. Unusual increased environmental temperatures may decrease the efficacy of underground sexual chemical signals in the amphibian. Animal research, checking pheromones, and it was done on amphibians. And this is what they found. When it's hot, you don't really care what he's like. So it's climate change. It might be affecting how we're feeling about the opposite sex. I just had to throw that in because it was just so funny. Okay. How to prepare yourself. So in my audience, in my clients, I'll often have people that are either long-term single, they've been single their entire life, right? And they're older, Or they're a younger single and they're really wondering if it's ever going to happen for them. They're either thinking about separating, divorcing, and they're terrified. They're newly widowed, or they've been in a long-term relationship and recently broken up. So ask yourself about yourself. Whatever category, and I might not even have your category in there, how are you doing now? Because these things are affecting all of those people in my office. How intimate, we're going to be talking about intimacy today. How is your intimacy with God, right? What he says about those who are single, we all know this, scripture, hopefully, about how they don't have to think about pleasing another person. They only have to worry about pleasing the Lord so they can be devoted to the Lord in body and soul. Man, let me tell you, that family stuff really makes being devoted in body and soul to the Lord a lot harder. Wow. So, how intimate are you with God? Are you taking this time period of your life, whatever length of time it's going to be there? It might be the rest of your life. It might just be a short time. Are you taking it to go, okay, cool, I'm going to get me and God really close? Am I closer to God now than ever before? Right? The importance of this cannot be measured. How are you doing in your relationships now with whoever on speaking the truth in love? Do you avoid conflict? When you do speak, are you nasty? Do you have a hard time with how to speak honestly? Either you don't do it or people have said you're harsh. Deal with that now. Learn that now. Okay, so equipped, right? Respect and love. So when you look at the scriptures on marital or parenting relationships, one of the big words in there is respect and love. How are you doing in those two categories now? Do you treat people with respect? Do you avoid, right? Either direction. So Proverbs 31, we're looking at the ultimate of married woman there. But I would say it's going to apply men or women. She, it says, but put it in he, that person can laugh at the days to come. How's that part of your spirit? How is your peace with life? How is your, God is good and I'm having a blast, right? How is that going? If it's not, if life is drudgery, get some help with that. You want to be able to laugh at the days to come. Now. You won't be able to laugh at the days to come then if you can't do it now. Okay, so fathers are told don't exasperate your children. Now that can apply to mothers, to men or women. In your relationships, do you exasperate people? Learn that now. Grow in that now. So if you end up being a parent one day, or if you have older kids and you're still needing to learn it, right? Learn it now so that then if you end up in a partnered relationship, you've learned how to deal with that. I don't tend to use the word purity. I tend to use, because it's just been so problematic, I tend to use the word stewarding your sexuality. How are you doing today stewarding your sexuality? So I'll have people come in, they've been doing pornography since they were 10, they're like 25 or 35, and I've done everything I can and I'm still falling back into it. And I'm like, well, let me just ask what you have done. Is this a first time coming to a therapist? Okay, great. Yes, it's first time ever. Okay, have you ever been in a SA program? What is that? Sexaholics Anonymous? No, I haven't. Okay. Have you ever worked a program, like done a 12 steps or worked a program book? I mean, I've read a few books and then I talk to the bros, I talk to the girls and I tell them stuff. Okay. Have you ever had an accountability? I have accountability. Have you ever had a sponsor? Somebody who's been sober from sexual acting out for 10, 15 years, who's helping you? No. And they've just said to me, I've tried everything. And I'm like, you've actually not tried anything. I don't mean that in a rude way, but we think discipleship is the answer to everything. And I believe discipleship is beautiful and lovely. I personally do. But we don't use the tools that are already out there. Go to a support group, for goodness sake. Go see a therapist. I work with this regularly. And I put people through a very specific set of things, and then they're in a whole different place because they've gotten much more specific help. So how is your stewarding of your sexuality now? Get the extra help. I do have my books, I'm not going to be talking about sexuality barely at all. If you came, I'm sorry, but I'm barely going to touch that. But my book on sexuality is here. If you haven't bought it, in fact, it's in the back of the room right now if you want to go stand there and listen. And I'll also have a book table. But how have you done just learning about sexuality, right? We don't talk about it enough. All right, so how many minutes do I have? I have all my devices running right now. I can't even tell my time. What time is it?
11:16.
Okay, I have 14 minutes. Okay, cultivating intimacy. What are some things to consider to cultivate your intimacy? First of all, what is it? In all relationships. Okay, so when I say intimacy, almost everybody thinks sexual intimacy. That word. That's why they wanted to take it off the title, right, for the marriage retreat. We need to learn intimacy skills. Prager, which I think I mentioned her on a slide here, she's a researcher. She's literally tons of research on intimacy. How do we build good intimacy skills is kind of what this is going to. So all of this you're going to see in the next one, so it's the research on intimacy. What is it? Sharing something meaningful, personal, private, either verbally or non-verbally. So it might be like sharing humor, nicknames, routine affection, those tacit understandings when you both look at each other and go, and you know what each other means. This should be happening in your relationships, period, right? Another definition of intimacy, sharing joys, hurts, and fears. Do you do that now? Do you have... So the biggest thing that happens with marital couples is I literally have a couple right now that are considering divorce. Neither of them, they're both very involved in church, not in our fellowship. They're very involved, and neither of them has a close relationship with someone else other than each other that they pour out things to. And this is across the board everywhere. Now, there are some people, they're married and they're considering divorce as well, and she's got a zillion friends, he has a zillion friends, and they don't do anything together, and there's all kinds of other issues. But it's a huge piece that comes up where there's just no other relationships that they're also pouring out their hearts to, right? So that you can also do that in your marriage, in your dating, in your relationships now. The perception, this is so key, that one is fully known deeply and authentically on the one hand, and loved, accepted, and respected and cared for on the other. Somebody that knows all my gunk, and they like me anyway. And that can be, for those of you wanting deep, intimate relationships with someone of the opposite sex that you may not ever marry, but you just want as a female, a good guy friend, as a male, a good guy friend. Go learn how to do that in those relationships, whether you ever end up in a marital relationship or not. Learn those skills. And it starts with God. He knows us intimately. He knows your thoughts. He knows when you lay down. His hand is on you. See the intimacy right there? He's touching you.
Yes.
He created you, literally knit you in your mother's womb. Every one of you. And look at the words he uses to describe you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. That's such a romantic phrase. Mine. Right? That's what God says about you.
Wow.
Do you know that? Have you deepened your understanding of that? How is your deep understanding of his character and his heart about you, right? Go look up Robert Carrillo's renewal webinars. I've got 8 workshops on there, but there's 15 other people as well. Go deep in you and God. He calls us beloved. Look at these romantic terms. He holds our hand. I mean, that's that's so intimate, right? We're engraved on his palm. He doesn't just carry us in his arms. He carries us in his arms close to his heart, right? We are literally created to be intimately connected. And it has to, if you want to be equipped, don't just follow God and obey him. Be intimately close to him, right? Feel his affection. I got to do a 8-day retreat in Alaska a couple of years ago. And I was we're doing it in September. And I'm doing a retreat in San Diego for just deepening with God in November. Anyway, this was my first time doing it. And nobody was there because it just happened to be no events at the place at the time. All by myself with me and God for 8 days. And I was in the book of John, and I have always felt very loved by God. And I realized Jesus is amazing to me. But I had never, clued into the whole feeling affectionate love from him. He's the Lord of the universe. He's died for my sins. He didn't sin. I'm so amazed by who he was and how he treated people. But the affectionate part, I felt more with God. Yep. And so I thought, I got 8 days. So me and Jesus, we walked through John. And I wrote down everywhere that Jesus was affectionate and warm and loving and encouraging. I went through the book of John, wrote it all down, and then I envisioned, this came because I'd been doing some kind of new things with me and God. So it's going to sound kind of crazy, but it was totally a little weird for me to try it. But I envisioned myself as being that person. So whatever the scripture was, he put his hand on their head or he said this phrase. I pictured myself being that person. So the first one I did was John. He's sitting at the table at the Last Supper, and it says John leaned against him. So everybody, close your eyes. Picture Jesus right next to you. Whichever direction you go, you might bump the person next to you, but whatever. Lean. Now picture it being Jesus, and you're leaning against him. And just stay there and take a big breath. Blow it out your mouth. Now picture that whatever that pressure is you're feeling as you lean, that's him. And you're leaning against him. Take that breath again. And let yourself notice what you're feeling. And go ahead and sit up straight. Think about whatever that was like. Like, honestly, I've done that like multiple times now, and I get this grin on my face, like, I'm leaning against him. I did that for a whole week.
Wow.
You know, Mary is at his feet. Martha complains, don't you care? She's not helping me. And he says, she shows him what's better. Same Mary pours perfume. Judas says she's wasting money. And what does Jesus say? Leave her alone. So I'm in Alaska, and I'm on the ground, envisioning being at his feet pouring perfume, and I hear him say, leave her. I lost it, bawling. It just did all new things to me and Jesus. Well, that's the way I did it. Whatever way you need to, go deepen the intimacy. He's blessing them before he goes up and raises up to heaven. And so I picture him putting his hand on my head. It's right before he ascends. And I'm on my porch at home because I kept doing all the Gospels. And I was like, what's that like to be in that moment? We need to deepen, hold his hand and go on a walk. When you're driving in the car, picture him in the seat next to you and have chat. Practice your intimacy with Jesus and with God. It's the number one thing I hope you take from this class.
Amen.
I mentioned Prager, what she said as far as intimacy skill development. It starts as a kid. Overall emotional closeness in your family. Did you have that? Was there good communication? Was there genuine openness from your parent? Was there nurturing interactions and affectionate touch? Did they make negative comments about your body? All of that affects your intimacy skill development. In the DSM, the Diagnostic Manual, it doesn't have an intimacy disorder in there. It should. Because a lot of people have intimacy deficits. So begin learning them now. This is a book by Kelly. He calls it his 7 levels of intimacy. And I just think it's kind of cool. Most of us, so cliches, facts, opinions, hopes and dreams, feelings, fears, failures, weaknesses, needs. Most people, so what we actually know from the research, most people only do the top 3. 85% of people actually, in marriages, only do the top 3. In marriages. Another 25% get those lower 4 when they're going through a rough thing like a death, a marriage, something like that, something big and powerful. Then they share hopes and dreams and feelings and fears and failures and weaknesses and needs. But the rest of the time in their marital relationship, they're at cliches, facts, and opinions. How's that going for you now? those lower four. So when I'm talking about intimacy, I'm talking about that level of vulnerability, right? I put these in the wrong order. Hold on, let me get there. Okay, I'm coming back to that. Where is it? There it is. Vulnerability in the Latin, the word vulner means wound. When you're vulnerable, you're making yourself woundable. Are you doing that now? Right? And is somebody that you're with going to be like that? All right, I have so much to do in the next couple minutes, so I'm going to fly. All right? One slide. Healthy sexuality during singlehood. That's all you get. Okay? Do it. Pursue it. What does that even mean? All right. How's your embodied living going? This is from my book. Finding good, robust ways to live bodily is so important. Dance, hike, play in the ocean, hug your friends, feel the water of a river on your skin, do yoga, build a house, you can tell I'm in California, like here, in Tijuana, enjoy a softball and soccer game, ride a bike, paint, hug that friend again, turn on the music and dance, climb a mountain and hike to a waterfall. An incredibly important part of maintaining a celibate life is living passionately in the body that you're in. How's that going? Are you living passionately in the body that you're in? You go do it. Figure it out. You might have health problems. Get help with how to still do that, even with a body that's not cooperating. Either direction, live passionately in the body that you're in. It really helps with loneliness, honestly, and it helps with how you feel about your sexuality, and it helps with your health, obviously, and it helps with your mental health. Huge. So go get the book, Earth and Vessels, and I want to go over some of these different types of intimacy. There's crisis intimacy, where you're standing together in major and minor tragedies, right? And you're there for each other. There's sexual intimacy. We know what that is a bit more. There's emotional intimacy, where the depth of awareness and a sharing of significant meanings. I've hit that a bit today. There's creative intimacy. Help each other grow and be co-creators of something really cool. There's conflict intimacy. Honestly, fighting you probably have relationships where you had a big fight and you ended up closer, right? Conflict intimacy. Spiritual intimacy. So this is the we-ness where sounds like weenus, like penis, but there we go. Where you're sharing ultimate concerns, or you're really talking about some spiritual worries you have, conflicts with God, you're maybe even in the middle of a spiritual crisis. Recreation intimacy, sharing fun with sports and hobbies, having ways to refill the wells. That whole paragraph I just read you. Aesthetic intimacy, beauty, music, nature, art. Go take care of yourself. Go spend time in nature. Go by a river. Go by an ocean. Go take showers. Please. Enjoy the bath. Go in the jacuzzi. Like, honestly, water is huge. Beauty, artwork. Go take a photography class. There's something just insanely awesome about, I do wheel time. I make my own pottery, sort of. It's not great, but it's like there. Or I go to those classes where you paint. I have this really cool set of plates I made. Like, whatever it is, go do these things that just make your whole soul and body feel expressive. Intellectual intimacy. So I have a few letters after my name. I always joke, I have 15 letters after my name, and they each cost me $10,000. And I've decided to add 4 more. So I'm in the middle of a master's program, and everybody rolls their eyes, but I'm getting an MDiv, and I am having so much fun. I can read the New Testament in Greek. Wow. That's my newest thing. Go find people that you go, oh my gosh, we had the best talk, right? You just go, oh, that was so cool. That's intellectual intimacy. Commitment intimacy, where both of you are fighting for the same passionate cause. It might be a political cause, another cause of some kind, right? Work intimacy, honestly working hard together, but in the job. Communication intimacy, we kind of hit on that. So there are lots of ways to have intimacy today, right? Go do them. Face-to-face is one of them. I've hit on that a bit. This is the talking. But so is the shoulder-to-shoulder. doing stuff that's hilarious together, laughing till your guts fall out when you're on a ride or playing a card game, right? We have this thing in San Diego, it's sports comedy. It's all ad-lib. You know what I mean? Like, they're all making it up, right? What's the word I'm looking for? Improv. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like, you're just, go to stuff like that. Spiritual and physical. We need to do the hugs. Okay, if you're all at Reach, they did this hug video that was so funny. Like, here's a awkward side hug. Then there's the guy and the girl hugging each other, and she's out like this, so her breasts don't touch his chest, and they're hugging like this. It was the funniest video, and it's a real thing. We don't know how to touch. It's kind of awkward. And then if you are dating and you're feeling like, I don't know if I want to tell her or him that when they put their hand on my thigh, how do I tell them? We need to talk openly about touch. And all the stuff that happens while you're dating, it is normal for the heart rate to go up. It is normal for the body to respond, for your penis to become erect and your vulva to start throbbing when you're interested in somebody. So when it happens, go, cool, God, you did a good job. You made my body really well. That's a little taste of what a sexuality lesson with me would be like. Okay, we're going to end here with, I made a mistake. I wrote my book, The Art of Intimate Marriage, and I didn't include this in my material of Redeemed Sexuality. So if you're looking for some tools on specifically how to speak well and do conflict well, go buy my married book. I only have 2 of them here. You'd have to get it from Amazon. The Art of Intimate Marriage, chapters 3 through 5. And my married book, anybody can read it, by the way. Okay, there's a chapter on sexual touch. If it starts to get you a little too riled up, maybe don't read that chapter. But you can read everything else in there, all right? Or you can redeem sexuality. But the married one is the only place that has what I'm going to show you right now. Validation. I'm just going to show it real quick. Proverbs 4:7, though it costs all you have, get understanding. Learn how to draw people out. Be with somebody who draws you out, who's learned that skill. Become a well-watered garden. That's the scriptural underpinning. And here, I'm not even going to do it today, but here's the model, the validation model on how to resolve conflict. Go learn how to do that. By the way, you don't have to get the book. You can go on my website. My website is theartofintimatemarriage.com, but it has a bunch of stuff for singles as well. It's just all under that website. So I have 50 podcasts, and about 10 of them are for you. So it's all on sexuality, but you know. Okay, this is the key. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no sheep in the pen. So this is in Habakkuk 3. If nothing happens, or if it all falls apart, you do get married and it falls apart. No matter what happens, what does he say? Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I'll be joyful in God, my Savior. Be joyful in the Lord. All right? So you can have a sneak preview for all the women who are here of my class. It's going to be the Beloved and Dignified Conference. If you went last time, thank you for coming. It's going to be this coming March. And I'm teaching a class, and this is my title. Rejoice always. What? What? Gives you a taste. Okay. Know him. And then go out and administer his grace in its various forms. All right? I have a question and answer thing for you, and we have no time to do it. Do we? Do we have 1 minute? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer your questions either way. Take a picture of this and put your questions in. I'm going to answer your questions and post them in the same place. You can go back to this, and I'll have an answer to all your questions. So pull this up. Type your questions in, and I'll get to maybe 2 of them before we end, because we have 1 more minute and people are already walking down the hallway. What time is it? Oh, I'm so fast. I have no time for questions. Please send your questions to me. So take a picture of this, and I will answer every question, and I will put them on the website.
Thank you.
Great being with you.